Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. Busy week of the Missouri General Assembly, and we are joined by the man who it seems like everything this session is going to run through, Senator Bill Eigel. Welcome back to the show.
Scott, thanks for having me.
Before we jump into the Senate fund, you've got another thing. You're running for governor of the state of Missouri, and
That's
it seems
right.
like it's going very well. The fourth quarter numbers came in. You actually outpaced the front runner in hard dollar contributions.
We did. Had a great quarter. We've outpaced the front runner for several quarters in a row now, and I think the reason that is happening.
More in hand now?
More in hand now in the hard dollar contributions. And the reason that's happening is because people are responding to our message. They're not responding to his message. My message of being the one that's going to go down there and really try to reform some of these broken institutions down in Jefferson City, pull the Republican Party back to the base, our platform, and really accomplish some of the big red Republican things that we have really talked about in campaign season but haven't gotten accomplished. People are interested in that. They're looking for that fighter that's going to kick over some apple carts. Just like at the national level, they're looking for a guy like President Donald J. Trump to lead the country back and kick over some apple carts in Washington, D.C.
It feels like to me that Republican voters that show up to events, that maybe call into talk shows, they're angry. I'm not sure they have a set of policies they even want. They're just angry. Now let me ask you this. I think you've ran the best campaign of anybody so far. I mean, I think the results come from the state Senate to being a major contender for this race. Can you break out past those active Republicans into some other folks that maybe they've never heard of you because they don't pay attention until later? Can you put everything together and turn the grass fire you've kind of built into a forest fire?
So yes, the first thing I would say is I would acknowledge that yes, a lot of folks are frustrated, and angry is a word that I've used on occasion to describe what I'm hearing from folks who are the most active and engaged Republicans. They're angry. I don't think that there's not a set policy behind them. There is a set policy behind them in the sense that they want to see the big Republican ideas passed. They want to see the elimination of personal property tax. They want to see our farmland protected in this state from foreign ownership. And when they don't see those things get done, IP reform, the issue of the week, they want to see IP reform get done. And they see year after year leadership teams in both the House and the Senate fail to deliver on these big promises that we keep making in campaign season. My message to them, as I travel around the state, is if you're angry about these Republican supermajorities not doing nearly enough, you're not alone. And I think there's power in the idea that people realize when they're angry and they're frustrated, not just about where their state is going, but where their country is going. One, understanding that you're not alone. And in 2024, we're going to have an opportunity to show up together to change the state for the better.
So tell me, heck of a week in the Senate. Thursday, and you put a little extra overtime, I guess, on Thursday, about a 12-hour Thursday session, which is not the norm. You took a hold, you and Senator Hoskins, Senator Carter, Senator Bratton, Senator Moon, took a hold of the governor's gubernatorial appointees to different boards and commissions, colleges, water boards, what have you, and demanded you want to go to a committee of the whole and bring up IP reform and issue petition reform. How did you equate the governor's nominees with grabbing the Senate and trying to maneuver a bill around?
It's actually pretty common for the Senate, both the U.S. Senate and the state Senate, to use gubernatorial appointments as a pressure point. And just given the fact that our leadership team made us stand out there and filibuster that for 8.5 hours means that the pressure point we chose of these gubernatorial appointments is a darn good one. So my guess is we're going to continue pushing that pressure point over the next couple of weeks, trying to push for the passage of the IP reform bill, which has been identified roundly in many Republican quarters as the #1 Republican priority of the session, because we're trying to protect our Constitution from attacks on it by some pro-choice folks that want to enshrine abortion back into the Missouri Constitution. And if we have to stand up every single day and slow down gubernatorial appointments or other sludge bills that other senators think they want to pass in order to get IP reform done, we're committed to doing it as the Freedom Caucus, because we promised, and I know this will make you smile, Scott, we promised to be loud and bold about what we were going to do out there on the floor. I think we're making good on that promise.
I heard you give a speech in St. Louis this fall. You said, I'm going to come in here day one. I'm not going to wait till the session. I reported it. I've said it every time we talked about session. I heard your speech. Seems like you meant it. Clearly you did. But let me ask you this. I know there's a new conservative caucus. The old conservative caucus, though, pretty much was you'd go on the floor, you'd take something hostage, the leadership would get mad, you'd get mad, there'd be back and forth, nothing would ultimately ever get done, and then you'd blame each other. It seems like that's what the end result was of Thursday.
Well, certainly slowing things down is the end result if we're not going to focus on the things that I think are important. You know, the new Freedom Caucus, I think, is a much more well-oiled machine that is designed to identify targets to create the necessary pressure to get the movement we want.
I thought the old was very effective.
That was a little bit of word salad there, but basically what that comes down to is we are going to continue identifying early, often, and aggressively the pressure points that clearly mean the most to the leadership or other members of the chamber until we see movement on the things that we think are important.
You know, I thought the old one was very effective and got a lot done. I don't see what's the difference in the new one. You got some House members in, but nobody in the Senate's going to care about that.
A lot of the methods are the same. I think that we have, in this case, we also have the backing of a national brand. I'm not so much worried about whether or not we need out-of-state interests that are endorsing us. However,
don't you want the Washington people out of the IP process? Why don't you want them out of the Senate?
Well, but the reason I think that's important is they're helping us get our message out further. So we have found part of the reason that the filibustering, the work that we do is effective is that we believe strongly, I believe firmly that the Missouri public, the Republican Party, the electorate in Missouri, they're on our side on these issues. And the more that we're able to communicate to them that we're fighting in whatever form that is, whether it's slowing down gubernatorial appointments, whether it's getting legislation passed, the people are going to be on our side, and the people can bring a certain level of pressure to bear on our colleagues who maybe they don't want to vote with us on the Senate floor.
Do you want Washington people bring?
No, I'm talking about Missouri.
The last old boy I seen come from the East Coast to do a dadgum thing from Missouri was Meriwether Lewis. I've not seen one person come from that river to help us.
Well, I'm talking about, in this case, the people of Missouri who we are communicating to, who are going to put pressure on our colleagues. And, our colleagues have made it clear they don't want to listen to us very much on the Senate floor. But I tell you what.
It is bad, right? I think there is, you've got 7, sometimes some do 6 and 8. They've got the rest. It is pretty toxic, right? I mean, the names you were called, right? When some of those people are calling you the names you were called on the Senate floor.
There were several of them.
It's kind of bottomed out, right?
Well, I'll tell you what, let me say something optimistic. In spite of all that, everything that happened today and the name calling that was going on, there were a couple folks who were not members of the Freedom Caucus, who were reaching out to myself and to other members of the Freedom Caucus, trying to find some compromise and a way forward. Those individuals, and if they watch this interview, they know who they are. Those individuals are the ones that ought to be leading this caucus. Scott, I'm going to tell you this right now. I don't think that we are going to be able to have a productive session in the Missouri legislature this year with the current leadership team of Cindy O'Loughlin and Caleb Rowden. If the caucus, if those, not the Freedom Caucus, but if those in the middle of our caucus want to see things get done that are in line with the Republican platform, we are going to have to choose a new leadership team. That's what's going to have to happen. We're going to have to choose a new leadership team. It's not, and the leadership team, I'm going to say this right up front, it's not going to come from the Freedom Caucus. I understand that. But there are those in the middle who are actually interested in working with members of the Freedom Caucus and everybody in our caucus. And all those conversations that we were having behind the scenes and negotiating yesterday, Caleb Rowden and Cindy O'Loughlin did not reach out to us a single time. We had to go through intermediaries.
Let me ask you, just between us, talking hogs, dogs, and logs here, give me a name that you think would be a good leader of the Senate.
So I think that, let me point you back at the floor discussion yesterday. One of the best conversations I had yesterday on the floor was Sandy Crawford. Yeah. And she was willing to stand up and say that she didn't appreciate the name calling on both sides. And this was after, honestly, and listen, I have a great personal relationship with Cindy O'Loughlin. I have worked with Cindy for many years, but she came unglued on the floor yesterday, and she was reduced to calling her colleagues names on the Senate floor, completely losing her composure.
And I think 34 people should have self-reflection.
I think there needs to be a lot of self-reflection there, and I think that says when that happens, and I don't want that to happen to any senator. Anytime a senator completely breaks down on the floor like that, that's bad for the institution, particularly when it's a floor leader. But that's an indication that we've got a senator that's kind of out of her league, and probably we need to look at a different path forward. Now, I've also been saying this about Caleb. Now, Caleb did a lot better on the floor yesterday. He was able to keep his composure. That being said, it was interesting to see Caleb talk about the only bill he wanted to take in and focus on was education reform, and yet the moment he withdrew his motion on the gubernatorial appointments yesterday, he immediately took in the FRA bill, which is a whole new set of complications moving forward. So it's going
to be an interesting week in the Missouri Senate, right?
I think it's going to be an interesting few weeks. And my message to my colleagues, not to the leadership team, my Republican colleagues, if we want to get more things, good things done. If you're interested in things really moving forward, then we need to consider a new leadership team for the Republican caucus in the Missouri Senate.
Senator Bill Eigel, hope you come join us as session unfolds and as the campaign unfolds for governor.
Scott, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We'll be right back with our opinion maker panel. Representative Besty Fogle joins us after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
Missourians know that big futures have small beginnings. That's why over 86% of Missouri voters believe early childhood education is essential to success later in life. While almost every voter agrees expanding access to childcare will attract jobs and help more parents succeed at work. And more than 7 in 10 Missouri voters say improving early childhood education will make our communities safer. Find out how you can help grow Missouri's bright future at mochampionofchildren.com.
We all know puppy mills, cruelty, neglect, and pet store puppies are at high risk for disease, even death. We expect our laws to protect dogs, but now an out-of-state company called Petland is trying to change our state law to enable puppy mill cruelty. We all know it'll hurt the dogs we love. Contact your state legislators. Tell them, protect our dogs. Vote no on the cruelty. Vote no on the harmful puppy mill bill.
Data captured by our state-of-the-art monitors helps us pinpoint the timing and location of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren, Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to Week in Missouri Politics, Opinion Maker Panel Time. Chantelle, Nickson-Clark, welcome back to the show. Running for state senate, right?
That's right.
State rep in North County.
Yes.
What part of North County?
So, District 67, and it's unincorporated St. Louis County, but Florissant.
Gotcha, I know where that is. David Casteel from Jeffco, how you doing, sir?
Very good, thank you for having me.
Representative Besty Fogle from Springfield, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
And Aaron Crossley from Eastern Jackson County, welcome back, sir.
Happy to be here.
Representative Fogle, tell me, finally, it seems to have been quite an odyssey, but the Democrats, the pro-choice crowd, I guess you should say, has come together sort of behind a referendum for the ballot in August or November. What's this going to say?
Absolutely. So this morning, Missourians for Constitutional Freedom was officially launched, and I would push back on your narrative a little bit. It's not just Democrats, a big bipartisan coalition of people who want to restore a woman's right to choose what to do with her body without intervention from me or my colleagues up here. And we're excited to launch that officially today and looking forward to gathering signatures.
It's going to be somewhat similar to the Ohio measure, I understand,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So just kind of a tacit, you can do this, and then the details can be sorted out a little later?
Absolutely, and that us as a legislature shouldn't be involved in that conversation at all.
Now, I think it's an interesting thing. Right now, if I'm a Democrat, this is over. Now, Republicans benefited before Roe from not having the law like they wanted. Now Republicans have the law. It's the greatest curse in politics, right? Once you get the law like you want it, then the other side has the fervor and energy.
Yeah, I think that it's an important issue that should be addressed and looked at slowly. I wasn't here when the law was passed to ban abortions, but I'd be open to discussing the opportunities that their bill will produce.
Representative, it's interesting though, Democrats used to represent Jeffco. They were pro-life, pro-gun Democrats. Now there's pro-life, pro-gun Republicans. The issue being kind of brought back probably ultimately helps Republicans at the ballot box after they take their medicine this year.
I think so. I mean, Jefferson County's people haven't changed much. They're still building trades and nurses and middle-class individuals that don't bother their legislators much. They just want to be left alone and be given the opportunities to do the things they want to do. So,
Representative, my assumption is in Florissant, this measure will pass with flying colors.
Absolutely. We feel that how do you get the option to choose a woman's rights? And as simply as that, let me make that decision. And so I 100% agree with you that it's going to fly.
But break this down. I've watched you in your short time in Jeff City.
Yes.
you know how to talk to people.
Absolutely.
All kinds of folks.
Yes.
My mama, very pro-life.
Yes.
I think she views it from the baby's perspective, right?
Sure.
Now, disagreement, I don't think my mom would be aggressive to anybody in the world, but I do think the pro-life argument, sometimes the extremists take these arguments and almost is bizarre what they come up with. There's a pro-life folks, you can see where they're coming from, right?
I do. I understand both sides of the coin. However, it's still my choice. At the end of the day, it is still my choice. And they made this bill so broad. You know, there are different circumstances. And when you look at certain individuals who are being prosecuted for miscarrying, they don't really understand that when you are miscarrying, they send you home. And so they send you home to pass, you know, the process. And so there are just certain circumstances that, you know, before we get into the weeds, there are certain circumstances that we should not interfere in.
Representative, you have a district that is competitive, right?
Yep.
And I bet you, if I know Eastern Jackson County, you have some Catholic folks that are, I would say they'd say they're pro-life. They may not be as pro-life as the law is now.
Right.
But I mean, you have to hear both sides on this, right?
Absolutely. It's something that when I was going door to door, I heard a lot of folks bring up. But across the board, most of the people in my district just want to live their lives and have the government get out of their way. And so when I was at doors, what I heard a lot of people say that were on the other side of the aisle than me, they said that they still believed that the Missouri law went too far. And as somebody that works in healthcare, at a hospital, you know, I ultimately look at what are experts saying when it comes to certain issues. And in healthcare, the experts in the field, doctors are saying it's a procedure that should be available to patients. Women are saying it's something that I want to have access to if I need it. And so I had quite a few, especially women at doors, come out and say, you know, I'm a Republican. My husband wouldn't vote for abortion, but I am going to vote for you because you stand up for my right to choose.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said the word need, though, versus something that we want. And I think that that's where the conversation between Republicans and Democrats will be a little bit uncertain. I mean, need is obvious that the government wants to support people's needs.
Absolutely.
And to protect life is the whole goal. So if there's a need, I think that's the conversation that will be had between the two parties.
Prediction time. Does this pass and by how much?
By 30.
What do you think? Pass?
Time will tell. I don't know.
Yeah.
Does it pass?
Yeah, by 12, 9 to 12.
12?
Probably.
Yeah. It's definitely going to pass. I would be in that 10% range for sure.
Yeah, I thought the pot thing would pass by a lot. It ended up passing by 7 or 8, I think.
Yeah,
It was enough, but I'm not sure by the time folks vote, I think it might be a little tighter. My gut tells me 20-30,
Sure.
but I'm not sure by
I'll
the
take
time everybody runs their campaign, and Right to Life will be
fair.
very aggressive in this.
Yes.
Will it be an interesting thing? The
It
governor
will
put
be.
this on in August, which I assume he will, but it's not a 0% chance he puts it on in November.
That's fair, and especially if it's in November, depending on who's on the
It's
top
in
of the
November,
ballot.
passed by a lot.
It's going to be a turnout driver no matter what for Democrats, and I think for moderates as well.
Can you make it a turnout driver if it's in August? Will people remember it by November?
Yes, I think it's such an issue that a lot of people think about. It's something that voters have been asking to have their voice heard on rather than in the legislature. So I think people are ready to make their voice heard on it. They'll show up. The people that want to make their voice heard will show up.
Betsy Fogle, many times Democrats have passed something in August that folks wanted, and then by November they didn't remember to vote Democrat. Then they went back and voted Republican. Is this going to be the same way?
I don't know. You know, I think people don't forget when someone took a right of theirs away. That is one of the things that I think does mobilize people. And almost everybody knows somebody who has had an abortion, whether it was because they needed a medical one, which is an overwhelming majority of abortions. There is no legal definition between a medical abortion and what some would call an elective abortion. And when you're in that situation, or if you are a 1 in 4 women who has been a victim of sexual violence, you don't forget what it's like when a group of people you don't know take a right from you away.
So you think people remember?
And I think people will forget. Will not forget. I particularly believe that women will remember.
Aaron Crossley on the budget. The FRA is coming up. People don't know this is a tax hospitals put on themselves. It allows them to draw billions of dollars of federal money. Money that Missourians paying in taxes, they get it back by this FRA concept. It keeps a lot of rural hospitals open.
Absolutely.
There was a bill heard in the Senate where Susan Klein, the very prominent head of Missouri Right to Life, alluded to the fact it was okay if rural hospitals closed as long as there were some provisions put in there that would defund Planned Parenthood or not fund it. Now, right now, the state doesn't cut a check to Planned Parenthood.
Right.
It seems like Republicans will be playing with fire here.
Yeah, I think that people are tired of leaning so far into ideology that they forget that there are other people on the planet that have different viewpoints than them. And rather than shifting so far into that extreme ideology, you're right. Rural hospitals have been increasingly closing, and that will happen. And even urban hospitals, such as the one that I work at, will have a hard time paying the bills if the FRA doesn't pass.
David Casteel, I mean, I think folks in Jefferson County are pro-life. They've always been pro-life. They vote pro-life. It is what it is. You start closing the hospital in Festus, could be some people asking questions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no chance that we want to put any additional language to the FRA bill. That's definitely a bill that we want to pass clean. Too many people depend on it, as you said, Aaron. And look, abortion is already what it is in Missouri, and there's no reason to continue to poke the bear.
It is an interesting thing. Sometimes the House can be a little more eccentric than the Senate. But on the FRA, a thing that matters, folks, the hospital in Florissant will stay open. But you drive an hour west, there won't be a hospital, maybe an hour and a half because you through St. Charles County. But once you get outside of Wentzville, you won't have a hospital till Columbia without the FRA.
Agree, 100% agree. And so we have to do our best in supporting this from both sides of the House. Yeah.
So you guys represent this kicks out of the House clean over the Senate for the games to start?
I sure hope so. I mean, if they want to run that Right for Life bill, they should just run it separate of the FRA bill. Yeah. The FRA bill is one of those mandatory mechanisms that we need to be in place and ready to serve the people of Missouri.
Could this be something that you just don't deal with in regular session? It's a special session matter?
I hope not.
You come back in, but I mean, you come back in July. The House passes it in a day, and you move on, right?
Yeah, I guess so. But I'm going to advocate that it be passed clean. So.
Yeah. I get it. Prediction: this come out clean. You come back for special session.
When I started session, I honestly thought we would have to come back for a special session, just with the tenor of the political discourse. But having been here for a couple of weeks and hearing folks on the other side of the aisle say they want to pass it clean too, I think it will.
Last time they did this, they had to come back for special session. It was everything you'd think. The House come back, shows up for committee for a day. The next day they third read it. The Senate wasn't as dramatic once it actually got to the floor. I think they ruled some amendments out of order and moved on. I feel like the temperature of the Senate right now, this is a special session item, right?
I don't know. You know, Senator Huff is carrying the bill, and Senator Huff doesn't lose. So if he wants to get it done, I think he'll get it across.
You needed overtime last time to win. You think you're coming back maybe in the fall?
It's too early to tell.
Oh, that's probably that's probably right. Let's talk about education reform. All right, David Casteel, we used to argue about this. I think maybe everybody's met their Aaron Cornman, and just something has to change with schools, right?
Absolutely. It's traditional education is what I believe in, and I
Same
believe
here.
that children's, obviously every politician said that the children are our future, but it's because it's true. And that being said, we need to teach traditional education and not some of this nuanced stuff that's going on today.
Do you worry? I'm a person that used to say all this stuff is just hogwash. I met my superintendent, who I was just an annoyance for him raising my kid. I see why people are ticked. I get it. I'm with them now. I'm ready to burn the thing down. Do you worry you go too far? Did Carl Esslinger, did they hire Carl Esslinger a year too late? And there's going to be some draconian things that if they would have woke up at Desi and made some changes a year or two ago to bring in some of these out of control superintendents, they'd have been better off?
I think so, but I think the parents should be heard in every opportunity too. I mean, they're not listening to parents at school board meetings. I mean, to file for your school board position is at a different time. It should all just be regulated fairly and at the same time as everything else. I mean,
interesting idea.
It's important that the schools also are funded and use the money appropriately. I think a smaller percentage of money should be used in the Capitol or in Jeff City or within the administrative staff, and a majority of the money be spent on the teachers' pay and the quality of education and the culture within the schools so that it's conducive to their learning and not dramatic.
Betsy, you've been a leading advocate for public schools, but I think you must have some feel for the folks. Folks, there is a feeling that those superintendents just don't care what these annoying parents think. Do you worry that the lack of any change and evolution is going to bring on something very draconian now?
I think I worry more that if we continue down a path of education reform is a term that people use, that we're going to have a segmented and disjointed educational system that does not serve the needs of all students. There is a lot of room for opportunity for growth within our public school system, and I will always be at the table to negotiate those. But when you look at all of the list of things that DESE has to do, the complaints that people have with DESE. Those are things that
what does DESE even do?
Those are things that we as a legislature have imposed on them. Those are statutory requirements that we have
Best I can tell, DESE will just go to gymnastics to convince you they do nothing. When you point out corruption or problems, they will assure you they don't do anything. And then they'll say, well, if you see Lincoln, tell them we need more money. That's basically what I see DESE doing.
That has not been my experience. I do share your sentiment that Senator Esslinger will do a wonderful job stepping into that role. But again, I will say, if we want to have a conversation about how to better our public schools, we need to look in the mirror as a legislature and say, why did we impose these bureaucratic barriers? If we think that privatizing education is the solution and our response is private schools know better because they don't have to follow the regulations, who wrote those regulations? We did.
I mean, is it part of it? I always thought you're asking schools to do too much. And so eliminating some of these things just made sense to me. There's a lot put on schools. But at the end of the day, I worry, well, whatever Carla Esslinger does, she's going to be great at. She's one of the most competent people I've ever seen serve in the legislature. I worry she's a year or two too late. The public is so frustrated and angry that they're willing to just throw any baby out with the bathwater, even the pro-life ones.
You could be right about that. I think, to steal the phrase you just used, since I'm from Independence, I think the buck stops here. Systems are designed to produce the outcomes.
Where does the buck stop in the DESE administration?
Right. Systems produce the outcomes they are designed to produce. And clearly what we are producing right now is not working for a lot of families. And the buck stops with us as a legislature. We are the ones that create the regulations, that give the guardrails to DESE. And so I think it's important that somebody that's new to the legislature, I'm coming in looking and seeing what have we done historically so that we can fix that. And what I'm seeing is that we have historically disinvested in education compared to other states. And so how can we make sure that we are investing in our kids in a way that is appropriate for everybody and that's keeping local control for parents?
We're gonna get kicked off if we don't slow down. So with a minute left here, who won the week?
Oh, so I have a special one. With permission, I wanted to recognize LaDonna Applebaum. Yeah. Who was diagnosed with breast cancer for the second time. And so she won the week for me because she works very hard in the legislature. And I wanted to send her some love today. So she won it for me. I'll echo that.
What a terrific one.
Yes.
Representative Casteel, who won the week?
Well, I'd say John Patterson won the week. Thanks to his fundraising efforts for a friend last night, he was able to do really well and provide some support for that family.
It was nice to see everybody come together to support Ian's family. That was great. Who won the week?
I think women in the state of Missouri with the launch of Missourians for Constitutional Freedom won the week because now we have a path forward of gaining rights back that people took away.
Who won the week?
I would say working families in Missouri. This week in Independence, there was a gentleman that was convicted in federal court for trying to transport stolen catalytic converters across state lines. Last year, that was an issue that I worked on with Representative Don Mayhew. We had a bill together that passed out of the House. We're hoping that will pass out of the House early this year and get to the Senate to continue.
If you catch them doing that, they should have to spend a weekend at Don Mayhew's house.
Yeah, absolutely. That would scare the...
I'm going to say a dear friend of mine, former state legislator, running for Senate, David Gregory, he and his wife Paige had a beautiful baby last week. They've won the week. They're going to win a lot more with that beautiful baby. We hope you'll win the week next week by joining us here on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, and the United Electric Cooperative.